All right, so we have a 50-watt Archon here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my voltmeter, and on this one in particular I'm going to set it to 200 millivolts DC. The 200 millivolts is small enough to read. So the manual states that the bias needs to be 30 millivolts plus or minus 5 millivolts. So what you do is you take your black, which is your common ground, and you put it into here where it says COM. That indicates common ground. And you're going to check each individual tube. So red into red, black into black. Oh, and one thing I should mention too is when the amp is on standby, you'll get that reading. You won't get anything. But when you flick the power off of standby, so now it's actually running signal through, then you get a reading, just like that. So on one tube I'm getting 34 millivolts, and on the other tube, so what I'm doing is I'm just taking it from one end, putting it into the other, just like that, and I'm reading 32 millivolts. 31, 32 millivolts. So it is off a little bit. The amp is quiet, but I would like to balance it out. And if you go to the bottom of the chassis, this is where you're gonna make your correction. That's a balance bias trim pot. And it's right next to the power tubes. So I'm gonna get myself a small set, and I'm going to adjust that left or right so that this and the other one match. All right, so you're gonna take a little jeweler's flathead, just like this, and you're gonna go in here, right up into the access port. Don't just stab it in. Go in there and move it left and right to kind of feel when you have it engaged into the trim pot. There you go. It just sank in. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna do small adjustments left and right. I caution you, those tubes feel hot, and if it touches your skin, it's gonna burn up just a little bit. So that you're gonna trim left and right. So what I'm gonna do is trim a little bit counterclockwise, it goes down. Trim clockwise, the number goes up. So now I'm at 32.6, and this one originally was reading, I believe, 31. I'm gonna trim up just a little bit more. Nope, that's too much. Trim back to 34. So 34 on the left tube. Let's see if 34 is on the right. It went up just a little bit. So these are JJ tubes, probably not matched from the factory. I'm gonna trim it down just a little bit there. 33, let's see what changes happened on the other tube. 33, 30. So these JJs were not matched very well from the factory. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim this up just a hair to 32, 33 just about, which means this one is still running a little hot. So not ideal. These JJs were not matched from the factory, but the amp itself is quiet, so no complaints here. I'm gonna trim just a little bit more. So I brought the high side down to 32, just about 33 millivolts. And I'm gonna go back to this side. And you see it's about 29.8. Factory spec is 30 millivolts. So just about 30 millivolts on the left side and 2 millivolts higher on the right side. 2 to 3 millivolts higher on the right side. That's the best I could do because the tubes are not matched. If you get a new set of matched tubes, then when you go from one side to the other, they should have the same reading. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And as you can hear, it's not a noisy amp, so it's not a big deal right now. But when I go to replace these tubes, I'm definitely going to go with a brand that is known for having better matches, like Tube Amp Doctor. So, yep, that's how you do it. Very simple. Takes a few minutes to do. You'll benefit from getting these little guys here. And again, that access port right down here. And just be careful because the tubes are hot when you do this. All right.